Welcome back to Monster Tamer, a 2D Pokemon-like RPG created Phaser 3. Previously, we worked on enhancing our logic tied to our random encounters in our game. If you missed the previous videos, there'll be links in the video description to source code to this point, as well as complete source code for this video. There'll also be a link to the previous videos if you'd like to catch up, so let's get started. So now we wrapped up our logic tied to our random encounters in our game. The next thing we're going to do is we're working on adding a new feature, and this is adding in items to our world scene. And so what we're going to do is to our overworld map where our player can walk around, we're going to go ahead and add item boxes where players can interact with them and receive items. So to see an example of what we'll be building, I'm going to go ahead and switch back to our game. And I'm just going to go ahead and do a new game real quick. And so you'll see here in our world scene, now we have these new item boxes. And when the player walks up to them, they can go ahead and collide with them. And they'll be able to go ahead and interact with them. And so when they do, we're going to go ahead and display a message to the player, say, hey, you found a new item. And then we're going to go ahead and add code to add that item to our inventory. And then that way we can persist that data. And so to go ahead and implement this, what we're going to need to do is in our tiled map data, we're going to need to add in some new object data tied to our items. And so we'll be adding in some new scene objects. And we'll need to go ahead and tie in some metadata to know which item the player gets from that box. So to go ahead and get started, what we'll need to do is let's go ahead and open up our tile level that we previously worked on. And what we'll want to do first is we're going to make a new object layer. And so what we're going to do is let's go ahead and make that new layer now. And so we're going to do object layer, and we're just going to call this item. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to drag this above our foreground so our objects are grouped together. So now on this new object layer, what we're going to want to do is we're going to pick a few locations where we want to add an item. And so what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to place an item right here next to this tree. And so for our items, we'll need to go ahead and pick one of our sprites to represent them. And so we want to go ahead and make sure we choose the option to choose an image to place our sprite on our world map. And what we're going to do is we're going to use that interior assets sprite sheet that we've added before. And we're going to go ahead and select this box here. And so what we'll do is we'll go ahead and place on our map. And now we need to go ahead and actually add in our metadata so we'll know how to handle this in our code. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use one of the classes that we recently imported. And this is going to be our item class. And so our item class is going to add a few custom properties, and primarily it's going to be ID and item ID. And so how these properties can be used is our ID is our unique identifier for the single item instance in our map data. And so we can think of this if we add 3 items, we'd have IDs 1, 2, and 3. And what that's going to be used for is as our player interacts with these items and picks them up, we're going to remove them from our game. And we'll be able to use those IDs to track which items the player's already picked up. So when they reload their SAV data, we don't actually add those items back to our game. And then item ID, this is going to map over to our items JSON file. And this is going to let us know which item the player should actually get when they pick this up. And so for the time being, all of our item IDs will just be 1, and our players will be picking up potions from our map. So to go ahead and do this, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and bump up our ID to 1. And then for our item ID, we're going to go ahead and do 1. And then what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to add one more item to our map. And I'm going to go ahead and place one up here by our fence. We'll go ahead and place that here. And so we'll go ahead and change our class. Let's go ahead and make that item. And then what we'll want to do is our ID is going to be 2 and our item ID will be 1. All right, so after we add in our data, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and save our level. And what we'll need to do is we'll need to re-export this out as our level JSON file. And we don't need to export out an image because we'll go through our object layer and we're going to dynamically add these objects based on the object layer. So what we'll do is let's go ahead and go File. We'll go ahead and Export As. And I'm just going to go ahead and place mine on the desktop. I'm just going to do level.json. All right, so for the time being, that's all the items I'm going to go ahead and add to our map. And if you want to go ahead and add extra items, just you want to make sure you choose your item class. You go ahead and increment a unique ID. So then that we can use that when we import our data. And we'll only be able to do item ID of 1 for the time being, unless you add new items to your items JSON file. All right, with that actually brings the video to an end. So in our next video, we'll continue working with our new level JSON file, and we'll start adding in items to our map. So as a reminder, there's a link in the description of the video to the complete source code for this video. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the content. If you did enjoy the video, please consider liking the video and hitting the bell icon to be notified when the next video in the series is released. For more great Phaser 3 content, please click on the links on your screen now.